Welcome to Simply Blossom, the podcast dedicated to life's transitional journey with your host, Kay Perkins.
Hello, I'm Kay Perkins, and welcome to episode 4, Booed Up for Eternity. Yep, that's what we're going to talk about, moving from religion to relationship. Just like with any other relationship, you begin with a learning period, a courting, if you will. You have to discover who a person is in order to trust them and build relationship with them. And it's the same way with God. We read who He is in a book, but until you have ups and downs and blessings and challenges, you always have to guess who He is until you finally know who He is for yourself. And through that process, you learn to trust God and walk with Him and depend on Him for everything. But the sad part about it is a lot of times we get in church, we get saved, and we get caught up in the people piece of things. And although we may have relationship with the people in church, we don't necessarily have relationship with God. We depend on the pastor to give us a word from the Lord and to read the Bible for us, and we don't necessarily read the word for ourselves and know who He is and what He's done. And I'm guilty of it. When I was a young saint, I would trust that the pastor was telling me the right thing. But as I grew older, I realized that, or more mature in Christ, I should say, I realized that what the Bible was saying wasn't necessarily what God was saying. Sometimes pastor will use a portion of a scripture and, it be taken out of context if you didn't read what was before or after it. And so I had to begin to study for myself and learn the word for myself. And then through learning what God was actually saying, I began to realize His process and how He does things. And it helped me to trust more and to give Him more because I could trust Him. A lot of times in life, the different decisions and things that happen to us impact our willingness or our ability to trust one another. And the first thing that you have to know is that God is not a person. God is a being that made all things. And so when you put your wishes and your hopes and your dreams and your problems and your challenges in His hands, it's not a person that He's not able to fail. He is the one true God, and you can trust Him with all things. And that's rule number 1. That's not to say that you won't have challenges in your relationship with God. Being in a relationship with God is similar to being in a relationship in the natural. It has its ups and downs, its highs and lows. And you just have to learn to trust God through it. And sometimes that's kind of difficult. For me, being an independent person who's always taken care of themselves and been able to provide, okay, I know it was with God's help, but at the time I thought I was doing it in my own strength, in my own might, in my own power. It was hard for me to let things go and let God handle it. So that transition was quite difficult during the years. And it gets easier, but it never ever goes away, at least not yet. I'm still hopeful. But for me, the real challenge of being in a relationship with God is being at the mercy of His timing, I should say. Rule number 2. When you say yes to God, you are at the mercy of His timing. Example, right now it's about 2:30 in the morning. It's 3 o'clock now. At 2:30 I woke up and He spoke to me and wanted me to do this. And I was negotiating for half an hour about how I could really do this at 5 o'clock. like normal. And he's like, nope, I want to talk about this right now. So we're going to do this now in my timing. You have to do it when I'm ready to talk. And so that can be difficult. It leads to some very sleepless nights sometimes. But the reward is so worth it in the end. One of the greatest benefits of being in a relationship with God is that He can be all things when you need it. He can be your mother when you need encouragement. He can be your best friend if you want to just talk about stuff that you can't tell anybody else. He can be a father and chastise you. He can be a grandmother and provide you with the wisdom that you need to move forward in life. He is all things wrapped in one, and He can meet all needs at all times. I started working on this topic a little bit over a week ago. I was woken up out of my sleep. I heard this word. It was Botox, which at first I thought I misheard or it was misspoke because I had never heard the word before. The only word that I had really heard was like Botox, which is the stuff that you put in your face to make you look younger. And I was like, why would I hear this word? So I got up and I Googled the word, and the Urban Dictionary came up. The Urban Dictionary defined it as being intoxicated by a beau, boyfriend, girlfriend, can't eat, can't sleep, or think straight. Because either one, you're totally infatuated and in love, or you're totally sickened by the person. So it's clear this week that I was supposed to talk about relationships with God and my experience with God. As I said earlier, a relationship with God can be high or low, and there's sometimes that I'm just so amazed and in awe of the things that He does, how He makes things happen, how He moves things and changes things and makes things benefit you in the long run. Even this whole podcast thing, I'm not the person that likes to get out front and talk to people. I'm the behind the scene person. I'm the person that makes things happen in the background. I'm utterly and totally comfortable in the support zone. And it's so amazing that, you get so comfortable in doing something and being a certain way that, that's the definition of yourself. And God sees you as so much more than how you see yourself. So when He said, I need you to do this podcast, I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be out front. I don't want to talk to nobody. This is not something that I want to do. I don't want my voice immortalized on recordings out there in the world so people can listen to me. But it has been amazing. Like, it's the most exciting thing that I've done in a long time. Just to be able to share my heart with people and just talk about, the goodness of God and just the whole relationship and the different facets of the relationship with God. It has made me so excited again. And it's such a good avenue to just share with people. You are the church. You don't have to go to a building everywhere to find God. God is with you all the time. And, and just being able to connect in this way, technology is just such a wonderful thing because we are able to connect as a body through recordings, through technology. It's not just a physical place, it's cyberspace. And you're able to reach so many more, so that one person at a time that you're reaching can turn into millions. So it's just amazing, how God can orchestrate things for your good. And at first you're very uncomfortable with it. So rule number 3, if you're uncomfortable with something, it usually means that it's what God has called you to do, or it's tied to your purpose. God will only ask you to do things that you're uncomfortable with. I don't know why. There's something in being uncomfortable that stretches you. There's some kind of lesson or training in doing the unknown or the things that you fear. And it's always usually tied to a blessing. Most of the time when you do things that you're uncomfortable with, that's usually the first step of saying, I trust you, God, and I'm believing that you're going to do what you're saying you're going to do. And when you step out like that, it's confirmation that you're allowing God to take control of the situation and you're not in control. And from that point, it usually leads to something amazing or like something that you've been praying for. I think a lot of times we get caught up in, trying to believe or trying to get God to prove that he's really going to do what he says he's going to do. But the mindset that we really should have is that knowing God needs you to trust him. So you need to prove to him that you trust him because he is God. He knows all things. He created your end before your beginning, and he knows what's best for you. So he doesn't need to prove to you who he is. You need to prove that you trust him and that you know that he has your best at heart. And he's trying to get you to a good success or the ending that you dreamed of or that he's the dream that he's put in you. Often what God has for us is so much bigger than what we even imagine. We get so caught up in these little tiny dreams and I'm guilty of it myself. But it frustrates me so when I deal with clients and people that I mentor. They have this potential to reach the moon, and their aspiration and goal is just to hit the top of a stop sign. And it frustrates me to no end because they don't see their potential. God had to say, that's how I look at you. You're comfortable being in the background, allowing yourself to be a servant to other people. And, that's the heart that you're supposed to have. But I need you to be out front. I need you to do some things that only you can do. The perfect mix of your life experience makes you capable and able of doing the things that God needs you to do to reach a certain people group. Everybody is not for everybody. You're not going to get approval from everybody, but who you're called to, you're going to reach, and they're going to be stuck to you like glue. It's going to be, you can't even get rid of them. Like they're so attached to you at all times that, it's like a crowd or a following of like a rock group or something. It's like really strange because if you love somebody and what they have to say, you'll always love what they have to say. One of my favorite people that I always like to hear is a lady evangelist. Her name is Olivia Mitchell. And when I heard from her the first time, she was so real, so raw. She talked about her experiences growing up in the inner city and how she had been attacked, and just her testimony was just so, oh my God, it just touched my soul. Just for the simple fact that I had suffered a rape as a child, and I could just relate. And though her situation was way more, it was worse than anything that I could have imagined. The fact that she could unpack that on a stage and still say that God was good allowed me the ability to heal and to know that if she could make it through what she went through, I could make it. And so when you sit and you complain and you cry about the things that happened to you, God let this happen to me, it's not that God let it happen to you. Sometimes things happen so you can relate to people. How are you going to tell somebody to survive bankruptcy if you never had financial problems? Nobody's not going to